Hey guys, it's Ken Maxfield. I'm the owner of the Maxfield Report, and this is my weekly recap of what happened in the cattle hide market for week ending December the 5th. The week started out with Packers coming out and announcing to the trade that they continue to possess very strong sold forward positions. They backed these up with offer lists that were, for the most part, in line with the last couple of weeks, although there were maybe a selection or two added by several of the Packers, but asking prices for the most part steady with the last traded levels. There were some instances of some people trying to ask a dollar more on certain selections, primarily for Tanner's destined in the automotive trade. Interest last week, there really wasn't any shortage of interest. A lot of the buyers tried to start the week with ideas underneath the asking price of Packers. Packers refused to negotiate prices. They countered at full asking price. End of the day, trading did take place. I would call the market steady on most all selections, especially for side leather. Anything going in the upholstery might have got another 50 cents to a dollar more. But I didn't seem like Packers were able to sell an entire week's worth of production. On the cowhides, similar situation. Producers entered the week very well sold, laying claims to possessing strong sold forward positions. Offer list unchanged with what we've seen the past few weeks. Asking prices higher. Buyers started trying to bid prices lower. The producers refused. End of the day, business got concluded at the asking prices of the cowhides. And at the end of the day, the cowhide market might even seem a little bit more firm than even the big packer market. But most cow selections reflected levels of about $1 up. And again, I don't know if they necessarily cleared all of their production last week, but with the sold forward positions that both packers and processors have, that's really not such a huge deal right now. As far as the knock last week, it came in at 667,000, obviously much higher than last week, which included the Thanksgiving holiday. As a comparison, it was 682 this same week last year. For the year, we've seen 29,962,000 head of cattle harvested. We're behind last year by 3.4%. That all dates back to this spring, early part of the beginning of the summer, when we had COVID issues where packers weren't able to run as hard as they would like to have, and why we are now down about 1 million head versus last year overall. As far as the weekly export report, it was decent. Wasn't anything to write home about. Sales of wet salted hides were 267,000. There was some additional sales for 2021, a whopping 3,600 pieces. On wet blue, a very impressive week of sales with 224,000 sold. There were another, 41,000 sold for 2021. So not terrible on the export sales, but again, you add those up with the Thanksgiving harvest last week before last, they about broke even. Shipments was the big news. Exports of only 309,000 wet salted hides. We only shipped on the wet blue, give me a second here, 111,000. For the record, that was a marketing year low for shipments last week. There's been a lot of problems with securing enough containers. A lot of the steamship companies are bouncing empty containers back over to Asia because there's such high demand for containers. They're paying close to twice as much for freight coming from China to the United States. So a lot of these steamship companies, when the containers show up, rather than turn them around and try to get them loaded in the States and take the 2-3 weeks to have that happen, it's more advantageous for them on a P&L basis just to send those containers back empty. And that's causing some problems. The further north you go in the United States, it seems the problem begins to manifest itself even more. And even some of our friends in Canada tell us they're having issues getting containers as well. Quick trip around the world. Reports from Brazil claim the market remains very firm. No real changes on fresh hides. Packers continue to push for more, but they're meeting some resistance. That said, no one's willing to take any less. Those prices, depending on where you're standing, could be anywhere from 80 reais to 1 full reais. Wet blue, similar situation. Folks are pretty well sold. The furniture upholstery people continue to take a lot of product out of Brazil. That's allowed them to get their positions squared away. They definitely have much better sold forward positions, and they're pushing for higher prices, but they have not been able to get higher than, let's just say, the last week to 10 days. It seems like we've kind of bumped up against the ceiling. Same situation we have in the States. Our friends in Europe report a similar story as in the U.S. Producers continue to push for higher prices, meeting a considerable amount of resistance from buyers. That said, trading continues no worse than steady levels, and everyone remains in decent sold forward position, so really no underlying pressure there. In Australia, the harvest is down substantially. There's been plenty of rain in Australia. They're also dealing with some issues for COVID. Live cattle prices are at record levels, so you have harvests that are running anywhere from 20 to 25% under levels of a year ago. With more than ample grass, the farmers are hanging on to their cattle. That's why the prices are going high. So the folks selling hides possess really strong sold forward positions, and there's no need for them to do anything but continue to push for higher prices, no worse than steady. So, end of the day, the entire market remains somewhat on a very stable ground. A lot of speculation as to what the first quarter is going to have for us for leather orders. A lot of it, of course, depends on COVID, the vaccination. Easy to say that we're going to have better leather orders the first 6 months of 2021 than we did 2020. That's not anything out of the ordinary because things were so miserable. The key is going to be, again, how quick can we get this vaccination out? A lot of optimism that once that starts happening, that they'll start to see demand push higher. We are, from a pricing standpoint, equal to levels prior to COVID, if not even slightly higher. So we're testing some of the highs in the last year, and it'll be interesting to see if the brands continue and want to take hides into leather for those items, or will they switch it back to synthetics. So that's it for this week. Ken Maxfield, the Hide Guy. Check out my website, www.themaxfieldreport.com. Until next week, we'll see you then.